Welcome to the Movie Pro Podcast.
This podcast may contain rambling, foolishness, and spoilers. Duh.
Hello and welcome to Movie Pro with me, Martin Cowan.
What it do? I'm Stewart Cinnamon. How are we? How are you today, Martin?
I am good. I'm very good. Yeah.
Good.
I think I'm adjusting to this lockdown pretty well now. I've finally settled.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people have really adjusted as of now. I think people are kind of just getting on with it and getting on with their days. And despite the fact we are what seems like, if you believe facts and figures and whatnot, it seems like we're coming towards a conclusion with it. But hey, who knows?
I still think we have a while left.
Crazy.
I still think we have a while left until we're like fully out. We're still in phase 1, so I think we'll hopefully go into phase 2 soon. But there's still another 2 phases. But we're certainly, hopefully, beginning to come out the other side.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I believe you have a bit of an announcement to make. We are award winners. When I say we, I mean you. I had no
award
part in
winners
this,
is a
which
bit of
why-
a award winners is a bit of a big statement. Prize winners is more accurate.
I'm trying to bring the people in, Martin. I'm trying to bring the people in. So yeah, you are. I'm not. I didn't know nothing about this until you kind of said, "Yeah, this happened," and I was like, "All right, cool."
Yeah. So from the host that we use to publish this podcast at Buzzsprout, we entered into a Facebook competition that they are running, and we were in the top 5, and they have 5 winners, and we were one of the winners out of the competition. So we've won we've won professional editing software. It's Heisenberg Journalist Pro that we've won. Which is amazing. That's exactly what we wanted. If I had to handpick any of the prizes available, that's what I would have picked. So I'm incredibly grateful to have been chosen to win. So thank you very much, Buzzsprout, if you're listening to this. Really appreciate it. It's going to help us so much in this in our podcasting journey. So thank you very much.
Yeah. If you are thinking about starting a podcast, we would recommend using Buzzsprout. They've been very helpful towards Martin, and because Martin deals with pretty much everything that goes on in the podcast. I just turn up and talk. That's what we were saying to someone today when they were asking about the podcast. I just say, well, I just turn up and talk. Martin does the rest of it. So, yep, that's excellent. And that piece of news leads us nicely into everyone's favourite segment, yours and mine. It's Stu's News.
Oh, I love this segment.
Bum, bum, bum. You're not going to love it this week, Martin. There has been not much going on in the way of movies at all.
Has it been a quiet week?
It's been a quiet week. Which is, quiet week. That's like it's Scottish. This is meant to be weird.
It's been a quiet week.
A quick week. So anyway, we'll kick it off with my first piece of news. And do you remember we were talking about how cinemas were looking at returning on July the 17th? And we were talking about how it might be that's when the Christopher Nolan movie Tenet was going to be released, and that was going to be the savior of the movie world, the savior of Hollywood, kicking us back off. Well, turns out that film's going to possibly be delayed.
Oh,
so even if movie theaters open in July 17th, you ain't getting a big release that week. You're going to have to wait until the next week for Mulan. That'll be, if Tenet gets delayed. It's not been yet. Collider have just reported that it's possibly going to be delayed.
Yeah, I mean, if it is delayed, I certainly think it's one of those things. Mulan will be the first big film. Of course it's going to be Disney that saves the movie industry. Of course it is. But as you say, how well it'll actually do in the box office, considering the cinemas won't be open for that long, and we still are in some form of lockdown. How well will it do? We don't really know. But I think we both will most likely venture out into the big bad world.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably the smart decision by the studio. A film like Tenet, obviously it's Christopher Nolan, so it's going to get people who are fans of him coming in, but maybe would suffer majorly from the virus, and
I think it would, because
being
it's not a major release.
Yeah, and people being scared to go back into theaters and whatnot. So I think it's probably safer that it's in the hands of someone like Disney with Mulan or something like that, where people are gonna go. People are gonna go anyway. So anyway, that's the first piece. Second piece of news. You've not seen either of these films.
All right.
Predecessors, but Godzilla vs. King Kong received a rating, and that's due out later this year, and it's going to be rated PG-13, which over here is a 12A, which means anyone over the age of 12 can go with an adult, but they still have to be accompanied with an adult until the age of 16. So, bet you didn't know that.
I did know that, but the viewers may not have.
You
so forget, I've known you for a long time, and you've worked in the cinemas for quite a while, so I have known this.
Anyway, Godzilla vs. King Kong is going to be rated PG-13. Any thoughts, Martin? Any thoughts? Or a 12A?
It's what I expected. I didn't expect them to launch it up to be a 15.
Nope.
But at the same time...
You've seen Kong Skull Island, yeah?
I have seen Kong Skull Island.
So you have, so I was mistaken in what I said.
Yeah,
I have seen one of them.
Yeah, I didn't know what you were leading into.
Yeah, I know you weren't. I don't tell them the news before we do the news. I need to stress this.
It genuinely is a surprise to me what Stuart's about to tell me when it comes to news. But yeah, Kong Skull Island was a 12A, and it was decent. So yeah, I expect it to be along a similar vein of that film, and the age range is what I expected it to be.
Yeah, are you gonna watch Godzilla or Godzilla King of Monsters?
If we're going to the cinema to see this, then I imagine I will go back and watch what I need to see.
I do have both. I don't know where the first Godzilla is, but I do have both. Anyway, so I'm going to talk about director now. Director's been interviewed. Have you ever heard of the director Ari Aster?
I don't think so. Maybe.
So he's I've seen 2 films of his.
His not the guy who done the original The Suicide Squad.
No, that's David Ayer.
Oh right, no. Then no idea.
Sorry, Ari Aster. He's generally a horror director, and so that's why you want to see many of his stuff. So 2 of the films he's done are Hereditary and Midsummer.
Yep. Yeah.
So I've seen both of them.
You've seen them. I've not seen them.
Didn't really like Hereditary, but I enjoyed Midsummer. Midsummer was just mental, and Hereditary just, I don't know, it wasn't really my kind of thing. And it got a bit demonic at the end as well, so I didn't like it. But anyway, he has been talking about his next project, and his words are that it's going to be a 4-hour nightmare comedy. He's describing it as a 4-hour nightmare comedy.
Nightmare comedy?
Comedy, yeah.
Okay. That's very long.
The first time I read this article, I did misread it, and I thought I have written it down here as nightmare horror, but it's not. It's a nightmare comedy.
A nightmare comedy, and it's going to be 4 hours long.
Yeah.
As I say, for me, it's not my genre, so
yeah.
For me, 4 hours of something that I might not like is not appealing to me. But who knows? It could be a good film. It depends on how horror it goes. There's a lot of sort of. I don't mind
it's just a nightmare comedy. It doesn't say anything about horror.
Yeah. Well,
but it probably will be because he's a horror director.
Yeah. Well.
But yeah, I'll wait till I see a trailer before I think of anything.
Yeah, it's certainly much more down your alley than mine.
Yeah, that's how slow a week it's been that I had to resort to directors who I knew films you hadn't seen and have barely any interest in the genre that he makes. So this is more for the people than for you.
That's fine. I am only one. The listeners are many.
Yes, well, apparently so. But anyway, that's all I've got for you this week, Martin. That literally is it for Stu's News. Shall we just get straight into the movie?
I think we should. So this week it was your choice to pick a movie, and you picked an interesting choice. It wasn't something I expected you to pick. You chose the movie Inside Out.
Yes, Disney Pixar's Inside Out. I'll talk a bit more towards the end about why I picked it, but we'll just go through the notes I've made and kind of little thoughts I had, and you can chime in where you feel necessary. So the first thing I want to start off by saying is the music in it is brilliant. Just even right from the off, where it's like the dun dun da 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 da. You know that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it starts off and it's just really like piano. Like I think it's solely like a piano, or something like that.
When Riley's being born.
Yeah. So I just think that little tune, obviously, it repeats throughout the movie. I just think it's beautiful. And we actually had it on the cinema playlist when I worked in the cinema. It was on there, so it's nice. It's a nice, relaxing kind of calming tune as well. So anyway, so we see Riley being born, and then joy appears. So I find it very interesting that joy is the first thing that we apparently feel when we're being born. And it kind of opens with the line. Sorry, on you go.
No, I was just gonna say the whole film is just really interesting for me when I was thinking about it, because it's inherently a kid's film, and yet it's so deep on so many levels.
Yes.
Watching it from an adult's perspective is like something completely different from just watching it as a children's film. So I find it really interesting when looking at things like, joy is perceived to be the first thing I don't know if it's meant to be all children, but certainly this child felt when it was born was the feeling of joy. And I find the whole concept really interesting.
So it opens with the line, "Have you ever looked at someone and wondered what's going on inside their head?" I think that's brilliant how it does open like that, because we do all think that. There has been, like, I don't think that anyone's been through the life where they kind of went, I wish I knew what they were thinking with someone. And then that's basically what this movie is. It basically tells you what it is in the tin. You're seeing what's going on inside people's heads.
Yeah, the majority of the film is spent inside of Riley's head or her parents' heads. There's only, like, say, small parts of the film which actually shows what's physically going on in the real world in that sense, which is just like you say, I love the concept that everything that you're seeing is meant to be inside people's minds and how they're thinking. That's what the different characters are. Who's more in control at that moment in time? Is it anger? Is it sadness? Is it
Yeah. So then we kind of get introduced into something important. So obviously memories. The first kind of thing that comes out is a core memory, which we go on to learn is like what sets up the makeup of a person is their memories and their core memories and stuff like that. And it comes out and it's of her seeing her mum and dad for the first time, and then that comes out yellow. And then suddenly we then start to get introduced to the different characters. So sadness appears for the first time when Riley cries for the first time. I don't know how much these are actually spaced apart, because it doesn't actually show, like for the three other characters, it doesn't actually fully show when you see them for the first time, really, or when she would see them for the first time. So the first time we're introduced to Fear is when she's running around with her cart, and then there's a wire, and Fear knows to stop so she doesn't trip over the wire. So I don't know whether that's the first time you see Fear. And then we go on to Disgust when she's... we go out with an introduced to Disgust, and then finally Anger. So there, it's kind of established from the beginning that sadness and joy are going to be the two main... and the conflict between them is going to be the main thing. Because that's what it shows, even through music. When it's joy, it's like a very kind of major kind of positive stuff, and then anytime there's a scene that happens, and then sadness kind of interrupts, and then it kind of goes minor, and then a bit more like,
yeah,
bit more,
I
right.
think that's interesting as well. That about the whole thing about joy and sadness being the two main characters.
Yeah,
Is that with a person, you genuinely, when you're thinking of how you're feeling, your main two feelings are you feeling happy or are you feeling sad? However, there are all these other emotions and feelings that you have too, but your two sort of ones that you immediately come to the forefront of your mind when you're thinking is, are you happy or are you sad? And then the two. So it's cool how they've put that as the two main characters are, because you're going to be your two main emotions in life.
Yeah. So then it shows more about how the core memories, how they power personality. So the way they kind of show personality is obviously they have different islands. So I've got the islands here. It's a Goofball Island, Family Island, Friendship Island, Hockey Island, and Honesty Island. So that's what we've considered as Riley's, what makes up Riley. Is all of these different islands. So then we kind of get taken through our life. We see her grow. We see the emotions developing, and we see her developing. And then it kind of epilogue wraps up with the line, Riley's 11. Well, what could happen? And then
I love that line because it's such a, what's the worst that could happen? It's almost like a wink to the audience of, you know what's about. You know something bad's about to go down. She's turned 11. What's the worst that could happen?
So then what I've got from the beginning is obviously we instantly get shown that they're moving house. That's what the scene is from the off. And Joy is trying like so hard just to control things because obviously I don't know how often you've moved house. When you've moved house, I don't think you've moved like a lot of areas. Like,
no, I've only ever moved house once, and that was not a long distance. That was more or less within the same town.
Yeah, so I've moved house to like a distance away like 3 or 4 different times. I was never as old as 11. I was kind of settled by 11 by the last time we moved. But just all the emotions you feel when you are moving, like you are worried, you are fearful, you are angry that you're leaving this place, you are happy because, well, you're trying to be happy because you want your parents to be happy. You're a bit disgusted when maybe the new place doesn't live up to your expectations, and
I thought the movie done that really well. When you first see Riley walk in, well, it's not even walking into the house. When Riley steps out the door of the car when they arrive, and it's not what she had in her imagination, because just before that you see in her imagination all these different crazy houses that she could have, and it's all like, oh, this one's made of candy canes, and this one's got a water slide. And so it's all of that, and she steps out, and it's just a sort of kind of ordinary looking house, and maybe a little run down, and she's like, oh, and you can see all those emotions kicking off. It's like, oh, a bit of anger, a bit of disgust, and then as she goes through, it's like you've got a wee bit of, well, maybe it's better inside. So she goes inside, and then it still doesn't look great, and she's like, oh. And I love the fact that they had all these different emotions quickly trying to take control at the same time, because it shows you, and like, it really shows a human's real emotions of, you have all these different things that can be happening in your head at the same time. You don't just always feel one emotion.
Well, that's kind of close to what I've written down. I've kind of written it down that things start to get a bit chaotic, but imagination is what seems to be what reins everyone in. Because it then allows them to be free, and it gets them to feel a bit calmer, because they're all imagining the best case scenario. So it keeps them preoccupied until, as you say, they actually get there, and then they see it's not what they expected. And then, like you say, she goes into the house. They find out the moving van isn't coming, so things just go from bad to worse for her, because she's not going to have the room, how she could decorate it to make her feel better and stuff like that. Like, all these little things are what make you feel better when you move house. Because it is a sense of putting your stamp and what you know is normal into a situation which you can't. It's keeping control of something.
Absolutely.
So then obviously that happens. She comes down the stairs. She's hearing her parents have a bit of being a bit upset, having an argument. And then the reason I just bring this bit up is because I like how, and I think when I went to see this, I think I really laughed at this bit, was when they had what was a great idea. It was a light bulb.
It
was like one of, like, you know how people call that as a light bulb moment.
Yeah.
And then she has the idea of, I'm going to distract my mum and dad to, again, make them feel better by pretending to play hockey and stuff like that. So it shows you there the real power of imagination.
Absolutely.
But the next thing I've got written down is obviously her dad goes off to work. She remembers that, there was a pizza place, let's go and get pizza with the mum. And then they go there and it's just broccoli on pizza.
Broccoli pizza.
And then there's really good lines in this throughout, but this is one of my favorites. Is congrats, San Francisco, you ruined pizza. First the Hawaiians and now you.
I think I missed.
That was a really.
Yeah, I think the first time I watched through that, I missed the second part of that joke because I was laughing too hard at the congratulations, San Francisco, you've ruined pizza. And I think I spent so much time laughing at that, I missed the whole bit about the Hawaiians. Like, it was only when I rewatched it last night when it was like, first the Hawaiians, and now you. And I was just like, that's funny, because I didn't really catch it the first time round.
Yeah. So then we start to see that memories can actually change. I think it was, obviously, it's when they're having a memory about, they're walking home, and they're talking about, I can't remember what they were talking about, but it's a happy memory, and, you know, Riley's laughing away, and she's having a joke, and then sadness goes to touch it, and it changes to blue, and Riley starts to get upset, and starts to, like, almost cry, and
yeah,
so that kind of becomes a theme that we can see, and almost a point of tension that we can see, that memories can actually change. And then I've written down, and I've thought this every time I've watched it, no matter how I know where the film goes, but sadness at this point in the movie is just so annoying. Like, it's like, you've been told, leave the memories alone. Why do you keep touching them? Why do you keep doing these things? Yeah. Why are you always there? Like, I find myself, I don't know whether it's because I'm just generally a more positive person or generally a more happy person, that when sadness is trying to get involved, that I get really annoyed, because I'm like, just what you're doing, this can all be avoided if you just leave it alone.
Yeah, and it's something that's actually really powerful when you examine it.
It's clever.
Yeah,
it's clever
really
when you see it throughout the film.
Yeah, because when you really sit and think about it, sometimes you don't want sadness to be tainting certain happy memories you have, or getting involved when you feel like you don't want sadness to get involved, and you're trying to fight off sadness sometimes with other things, whether that's happiness or anger or whatever you're when you actually examine it to real life, sometimes, although you don't want sadness to change something, sometimes sadness can't help it, and sometimes sadness does come into your life, even if you don't want it to.
Yeah. And I think as well, it's almost poetic throughout the film. Obviously, at the beginning, you're like, well, for me, it's, oh my goodness, sadness is so annoying. Or like, and I think the filmmakers kind of train us to think that. I think that's how we're supposed to feel.
Oh,
at
yeah,
that time
absolutely.
Within the movie. And then, so when we come to appreciate sadness later on, we'll get to that, but I'm just like, And then it comes, one of the scenes that kind of adds to the annoyingness of sadness is when Joy, I keep almost calling her Joyce, that Joy tries to find the fun, as she puts it, with sadness. So she like names like, do you remember that time when we were out? And then she was like, yeah, and it was raining. And then she was like, yeah, and there was all those puddles, we could splash around. She was like, yeah, I like it when the puddles filled up our socks and our feet got wet. And you're just like, oh man, come on. So yeah, that really annoyed me. Then I've got written down that, you know, at that point she kind of just gives up, tells her to read this book. Then eventually all the emotions go to bed because they need to have an early day for school in the morning. But Riley, Joy says she's on dream duty, which I think is really funny. I don't know why, but in the dream, it starts off as this really kind of boring thing, and she's like, "Nah, this isn't working for me," or whatever's on the TV, and she puts on that one of Riley out with her family and skating, and she starts skating with her.
Yeah.
So I got really kind of over analytical with it, and I put that Joy and Riley skate together in the dream, showing that they're really one with each other, so that Joy is, so that Riley's a happy person. Riley feels Joy, and Joy really feels she really feels Riley. So that's how I kind of took that, as Joy's the main person because Riley's a happy person. Like, I thought it was kind of interesting as well when, again, we'll get to these scenes later on, but for some, I don't get why, and I would love to sit with the writers and wonder why they did it that way. But in Mum, it's Sadness who's, like, in charge, and then in Dad, it's Anger who's in charge. And that's the thing that...
It's something I've never thought about while watching this film.
I've thought about it every time. But it's almost like Anger, and the way that they're both portrayed, is like Sadness is almost kind of like, I don't know. I mean, I don't really know why. Again, that's something I'd love to sit down with the people who wrote the film and go, so why choose that character? Yeah.
I mean, like you say, you won't know.
And also another thing is why this is where my head goes sometimes, but why are the emotion in Riley's head male and female, but in the mum's head they're all female, and in the dad's head they're all male, despite the fact, I don't know. These are just where my head goes, and I just think it's really really interesting, and I know it's for a little throwaway gag, but it's just something that came to my mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's one of those things that unless you are sitting with the writers or creators, you'll never know. But yeah, I can't remember what I was going to say before then.
I've thrown you off your train of thought.
Off my trail of thought. What are we talking about?
And that's literally what I've got written down. Is before that I put about Joy and Riley skating together, and how Riley's a happy person, and Joy's, so it kind of shows that they're in sync at that time. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah. I remember now. And then you went on to say about how why Sadness was seen to be in control of Mum and Anger was in control of Dad. And I feel that's it's something I hadn't thought about before, but now just thinking about it here, it is really interesting because different people, everybody's different, but I suppose when it comes down to it, everybody is going to have one overriding emotion than everything else. Some people are going to feel more happy within themselves. They might feel sad sometimes, they might feel angry sometimes, but overall they might feel happy most of the time. But some people might not. Some people might feel sad the majority of the time and sometimes feel happy. And it's a really subtle thing they've done in this film, which must be deliberate, that I'd never thought about. But it's this movie just keeps getting deeper and deeper the more you look into it. The more how, as you say, the dad's overriding emotion is anger. How is all, which is interesting because I don't even see that dad character on the outside being a super angry person. He seems quite calm and nice, but yeah, it's quite interesting, and you could. I'm sure there's a lot of
my only thing.
Carry on.
My only thing is possibly that it could be, I mean, without sounding sexist here, it could be that people associate anger as being like a male emotion, as being like, oh, men are angry, can be angry people and all that, and sadness is almost seen as like a feminine emotion. It could be that. I don't know. Like I say, I'm not in the room. Those aren't personally views of mine either.
Yeah.
I think that it, like we'll talk about, it's okay to be sad and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. Again, it's one of those things that unless you're in the room, or unless you're really smart, or you actually ask the question, then you probably won't know the answer to.
Yeah, like you say, I think
So,
it's one
yeah.
of these things which is like a rabbit hole which you could keep going deeper and deeper and ask lots of little questions like, well, why did they choose to do it this way? Or why did they choose to pick this character?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah. So then carrying on what I said is I've just written down here train of thought, lol. Because I was like, huh, that's really funny. Just because I did. But then anyway, we wake up the next day for school, which is why she waves to the train of thought, because the train of thought goes past. And then I put Joy's a bit mean to the sadness here with the circle of sadness. Like, I was just like, oh, there's being reasonable, and then there's being this. And I think this is very unnecessarily mean.
Yeah. I think it also is a really good setup for the rest of the film between the two characters of Joy and Sadness, because at this stage in the film, it's very clear that Joy doesn't regard Sadness to have any real value or any real purpose.
She just sees sadness as a bad thing.
Yeah, she's just sadness is a bad thing. She's always in the way and doing things that's upsetting. Upsetting what I'm doing, which is trying to bring joy. So she doesn't see the value in what sadness has to bring. So she's just very dismissive of her. Doesn't take anything she has to say on board. And when it comes to this day that she's trying to make go perfectly well, literally draws a circle around sadness on the ground and say, that's the circle of sadness, do not step outside that circle. As you say,
stay there.
Which is very sort of mean and unfair to sadness.
Yeah. Well, then we go to school. Fear and disgust and anger, they've all made plans. Everyone's made plans. Riley's going to look good. Fear has got loads of information on worse things that could happen. And I love that bit where she sits down, and then it's like she gets, one of the options is, one of the worst things that could happen is we get called on by a teacher. And it's literally like one of the first things that's happened.
Yeah.
He's like, out of the gate.
Yeah, and the big stack of papers just goes flying, and he's like, ah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then Riley stands up. Yeah, Riley stands up and she does the my name is Riley Anderson. I used to live in Minnesota, and now I live here. And then she starts to remember stuff, and then sadness has came out of her circle, and she starts touching the memories, and everyone's going, oh, for goodness sake. And then she starts crying at school.
Yeah.
And then a blue core memory appears, and everyone's like, oh, that's blue. And that's what is going on?
It's the first time in the movie that we've seen a core memory that's not Joy.
Yeah. And Joy can't take that. Joy they get absolutely raging, so they start to fight. She tries to pull it away, and then all these other memories spill, and when the memories spill, the funnel to take them to long-term memory comes and sucks up Joy and Sadness, and we've lost them.
Oh no.
We've lost them. And then you get Anger saying, can I say that curse word I know now?
Yeah.
So that's really good. And then islands, you see islands, you see the islands starting to shut down. So, I mean, then the other emotions, we then move to the kind of dinner scene with Riley and her mum and dad, which we were talking about previously. And it's a scene that was in the first trailer. And I remember being at uni when this trailer came out, and I remember watching it repeatedly. I remember showing people at uni, and I was just like, this film looks incredible.
Yeah.
So it's the whole scene where all the other emotions are trying to be joy, in the sense of when replying to their mum, but because their anger, it comes across as being angry, it comes across as being disgusted, it comes across,
Yeah. And I just say this is a really interesting, almost like plot of the movie, is that when, as you say, Joy and Sadness are removed from headquarters, Riley's no longer able.
Headquarters. Yeah.
How many times have you seen this film?
I've literally never thought of that before. I know. I've literally never thought. I think this may be my fourth or fifth watching. I've never thought of that before. That's my headquarters.
Yeah. So anyway, once Joy and Sadness are removed from headquarters, Riley is no longer able to feel those emotions, so she can't feel happy or or sad, and all she's left with are these other emotions. And it's, as you say, it's a real echo mirror of what happens in real life sometimes, especially for kids that age. Actually, there's their bodies begin to change, and suddenly their emotions, they don't quite know how to process things, and for some reason they just don't know how to feel happiness or feel sadness at a certain time, and the only things that they have left to feel are either anger or disgust or fear, and it's a very confusing time.
Yeah, totally. So then we have the scene with the mum probing, and instantly Riley's onto it. It's like, Anger's like, oh, she's probing us. And then we get the whole sequence between the mum and the dad, and I think it's incredible. It's like when Riley's dad threatens to put the foot down. And I love
it's
that
one of my
whole
favorite
bit.
scenes,
it's
actually.
Like, it's one of my favorites. And then they do it, and he sends her off to her room, and then he's like, the foot is down, the foot is down. I love that scene so much.
Because it's then the inside dad's head that are going, huh, thank God, that could have been a disaster. And then it cuts to the mum's head, and they're like, well, that was a disaster.
It's one of the smartest film sequences, one of the smartest scenes I've ever seen.
Yeah,
in a film. It's brilliant. I could watch that on its own. I would love to see a short film with that again, or with something similar to that.
Well,
again.
Have you seen the the short film Riley's First Date?
No.
Well, there's a Disney. It's on Disney Plus. And it's a inside out short film called Riley's First Date.
I've seen a TikTok that, well, not a TikTok. I've seen like an internet video that comes from that, and it's Riley's dad answers the door, and and they start talking or whatever, and then he goes, the wee boy's like, "Oh, I'm in a band," and then he goes, "I was in a band once," and then it zooms in his head, and it's him doing the YMCA. Not him personally, there's a guy, it's one of the guys in the Village People, and he's dancing along at the YMCA. It's the guy with the mustache, I can't remember, it might be the cowboy, or to be honest, I don't know, but I'll see if I can find it after this and send it to you.
Oh, that is really
hilarious.
Funny, because I was going to say, well, that, as you were talking about, I'm like, well, that is lead up, and that is quite a lot, because it's only a 7-minute short, but yeah, that is funny. I was in a band once. Young men.
Yeah, I'll send you. It's brilliant video. So after that happens, we kind of see Goofball Island starting to fall, or Goofball Island does fall. Then Joy and Sadness, we see them walking around long-term memory. They start to meet the people who throw away the memories.
Yeah.
And again, another one of the only reason I mention this is because it's another one of my favourite things, is when they get the gum commercial one, and they're like, oh, sometimes we just send this up to headquarters just for fun.
I love that as well.
And then, because as well, I remember watching that and again seeing the film for the first time, and the song gets stuck in my head as well, because it's just amazing to see how they kind of went around doing things like that. Like, because that is a total common human thing where we get something stuck in our heads that we don't want in our heads, but once it's in our heads, we can't get rid of it.
Yeah.
So they just send it up, and then it appears, and it's like triple dink, and then it appears later on in the movie.
Yeah, a couple of times. Yeah,
it's brilliant.
That was funny.
So then, Sadness and Joy are still missing. Anger and fear and disgust are just not doing well at this whole running the console system. Riley's on the phone to her friend. She finds out her friend's got a new friend, and then just shuts, like, she just gets raging because Anger gets angry, obviously. So then Friendship Island starts to fall, and then we meet. Then we come on to meet Bing Bong. Who's your friend who likes to play?
Bing Bong, Bing Bong.
Who murdered someone in this movie? Bing Bong, Bing Bong.
Wait, what? When? What bit?
I'll get there. Oh wait,
so I do remember that. Oh,
wait. So we meet Bing Bong. We learn that he's part cotton candy, part cat, part elephant, and also part dolphin.
Yeah.
Yeah. And has a Mary Poppins bag.
He does. It fills a lot of memories in that bag.
Has a lot of memories in that bag, and also a sink and a cat and other items. So they end up meeting Bing Bong. He says he knows a shortcut to catch the train of thought. And then another really clever concept was abstract thought. I thought that whole scene, that was really clever.
It was well done. It was well shot.
It was well done as well, because it taught abstract thought in the sense of it's like doing this and then breaking something down and then having another look at it and then eventually like just flattening it out. It was just really kind of weird. It was a really trippy and weird scene, but really, again, another clever depiction of something that we humans just take for granted.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like, so then we come out of abstract thought into imagination land. Bing Bong starts to take us around imagination land. Then we go to Cloud Town, and a murder is committed in Cloud Town.
There is.
A murder, Martin.
There's been
Bing
a
Bong
murder. There's been a murder.
Yeah. And there's no... It's on camera. Bing Bong kills a man.
In literally in a PG Disney movie, Bing Bong murders a cloud man, a man made of cloud, and walks away
by blowing him.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It wasn't even like an accident. He literally just goes, because he wanted him to get him to pay for what damage he'd done to his cloud house, and he just goes and blows him away, and then walks away as if he's done nothing.
Yeah,
murderer.
But no, he murdered a man. And do you know how we know it's murder? Because we come back a couple of scenes later and the police are there with his wife. So it's full on murder.
Yeah, in which then, I think, is it Joy runs through into her and kills her as well?
I think so. No, she doesn't.
Somebody does.
Nothing happens to her, I don't think.
Someone.
I can't remember. I know I watched this film this morning. But...
Somebody runs through the wife in that scene. She gets poofed away.
It'll be Joy.
I think it's Joy.
It'll be Joy.
And
because she's chasing after Sadness. That's why.
That's right.
Anyway, we'll move on from the murder. We'll cover up the murder of Mr. Cloud, and we'll talk about how we start to see them dismantling Imagination Land. They blow up the Princess Palace, and they take Bing Bong's rocket to the dump. And obviously Bing Bong gets really upset about that.
Yeah.
And obviously Joy goes over and tries to be Joy, but it doesn't work. It doesn't make him feel any better. But Sadness goes over, and this is kind of the turning point with Sadness.
Yeah.
As we see that Sadness goes over and tries to make him feel better, and because it makes him obviously feel sad. It makes him feel sad, but it also makes him feel grateful because he starts to reminisce about all the memories he had with Riley and with the rocket and how he took her to the moon. So it's kind of like happy sad. It's kind of when we first kind of see that happy sad thing.
Yeah, I've literally got in my notes here that Sadness is shown for the first time at this point to have purpose. Because up until that point, Sadness is just a right pain. She's really annoying and she's just messing everything up and blah, 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 blah. And Joy has no time for her and she's just dragging her along. And it's literally at this point, because once Joy realizes I've tried everything to make Bing Bong happy and it's not working. She's literally like, Sadness, leave him alone. You're going to make things worse. Like, come on. And Sadness goes over and actually like deals with him and sits with him and allows him to feel sad, which is what he needed to feel, and to get his emotion out. And after he was able to feel sad and to have a wee bit of a cry, he's like, right, okay, let's go. And Joy is like, can't believe what she's seen, because she's like, what did you do? How did you do that? Like, because and it's the first time she actually sees that sadness actually has a place and actually has worth.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's one of the most important parts of the film. Sorry, my hay fever's just acting up here. It's probably one of the most important parts of the film, because it's the first time we kind of see that it's okay to be sad.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's one of the main lessons that comes out of this film. I mean, I want to talk about more in depth about deeper meaning and stuff after we've wrapped up the film. But again, like I say, I think this is the first time that we feel that they kind of get across that it's okay to be sad. So then they manage to catch the train of thought, and then there's a brilliant joke on this, where Bing Bong spills over facts and opinions.
This is my favourite joke. My favourite joke in the movie.
Joy is like, oh no, she's like really panicked over it, but he's like, you just put them all in the same box. They basically mean the same thing.
Yeah, because she's like, she literally knocks over 2 boxes, and one's facts and one's opinions. Oh, they all look so similar, and Bing Bong's literally just like, oh, it's okay, people get confused with these all the time, and just puts them mixed up in each box because people get confused with facts and opinions all the time. And I thought, that is such a clever joke, and it's so true.
Oh, it's brilliant. So whilst this is going on, Anger hatches the plan to run away to Minnesota.
Yeah.
So run back, because his thinking is, well, that's where we made all the core memories. That's where we'll make some more.
Yeah.
As flawed as that thinking is. So as they do that, Riley goes to sleep, and it means that they can't get the train of thought to headquarters. So they work out that the only way to that they're going to have to wake her up, because it only runs if she's awake.
Yeah.
So they go to Dream Production, which is like Hollywood. I also thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
But Joy completely gets the wrong end of the stick and tries to excite her awake. And it's like, no, that's not going to work. Again, showing the emotions, that we need more emotions than just happy. We need to be more things than just happy. So then, obviously, Joy tries to wake Riley up with them dressed as a dog. And then, because the reality filter's on, and Fear's watching the dream like, this is rubbish, and the woman playing the teacher's a horrible actress and stuff like that. And then the dog comes running through, and he's like, what? And then the dog jumps in half. And he's like, oh! That's when he starts to get scared. And then the camera like spins around, and it's the big unicorn thing, and he's like,
hold on.
Boo! Pick a plot line.
Pick a plot line.
That's funny.
I enjoyed that scene.
So then they get arrested, join Sadness and Bing Bong, because that's what happens. They were trespassing, so they get arrested. They get taken to prison.
Arrested for trespassing, but not for murder.
Nope. Where the police should still be after Bing Bong for this. I'm going to make t-shirts saying Bing Bong is a murderer.
Here, do you think that's why he sacrificed himself? Because he knows he's...
We'll get to that bit. That's like the core.
Well, yeah, we'll get there, but people have seen they know what happens. They're not listening to this.
Right.
Not knowing what's coming.
No, I know. But we've prepared people.
Right, okay, so
anyway.
Let's keep going on the journey.
So they wake up, they see this clown, and it's this clown which Riley was scared of, and they went, yes, this is our ticket for getting her awake. So they wake her up, they manage to get her up, and at that point, the remaining other emotions have planned that, do you know what, this is going to happen. We're going to go back to Minnesota, and Anger pretty much takes control and says, no, this is what's happening. And it causes her to steal as well, which shuts down Honesty Island and Family Island, I think, at that point. So then, whilst they're in the middle of getting the train of thought going, this starts to happen. And then another clever joke happens again on the train, where Bing Bong's like, oh, there's such and such, there's deja vu, and there's such and such, and there's deja vu.
Yeah,
and I'm like yes, that's so clever. so the train gets cut off the wire, and they manage just to get saved by all the memory people. They manage to save Bing Bong, Sadness, and Joy. Then Joy seems that it knocked a recall tube, and she hatches an idea. Oh, if we go up the recall tube, we'll get home. So she jumps in the tube, and Sadness is trying to go with her. But as Sadness tries to go with her, she starts changing her memory, and Joy kind of like kicks her out.
Yeah,
almost.
Yeah.
In fact, she does. She kicks her out and closes the tube and goes herself. Which is when you kind of go, man, Joy's a bit. Oh.
Yeah, it still emphasizes the fact that Joy doesn't see enough value in Sadness, that she's like, no, you'll change these memories to be sad, and you can't do that. So and Riley needs
she's still
me.
seeing sad as bad.
Yeah. She's more like, Riley needs me, but she doesn't need you. So, which is why she's like, no, I'm just gonna go myself.
Yeah. So then the tube breaks. She ends up falling into the memory dump. Bing Bong ends up falling into the memory dump trying to save her. And this is when things start to change for Joy. And this is when I kind of first started tearing up. Is she sees she's so miserable, and she sees a memory, and how memory, I think it's the memory of her, and it shows you all of her team lifting her up and all this kind of stuff. And then Sadness was like, oh, I remember that day. That was the hockey, the Prairie Dogs lost the big playoff hockey game, and Riley was so sad, and she went on that tree, and then everyone made her feel better. So as Joy's kind of swiping through the memory to remember herself, she sees that core memory actually starts out sad.
Yeah, exactly.
And then turns into joy.
Yeah, as you say, she starts to sort of realise that sadness is actually needed sometimes to create core important things, and to create joy sometimes sadness is necessary.
So then they find Bing Bong's rocket, and they discover, we can maybe get back home if we use the song power. So do you know the song, Martin?
Kind of. I know the Bing Bong.
No, we'll not sing the song. Everyone knows the Bing Bong, but it's who's your friend who likes to play Bing Bong, Bing Bong, whose rocket makes you shout hooray, Bing Bong, Bing Bong, and then that's where I'm goosed. But anyway, so they try that a couple of times. So it's like, who's your friend who likes to play? And then it gets more aggressive and aggressive backwards, and it's that bit. I can see your hands on your head already. Where they go for it a third time, and Bing Bong sets it up, and he's like, he kind of sees that so the whole time he's been down there, he's started to fade away. And it's kind of reached to his shoulder on his left-hand side at that point.
Yeah.
And he kind of, you can see in his head that he's thinking something here. So he goes over to Riley and says, come on, I've got a good feeling about this one. So they're going and they're doing it, and they're getting faster, and not Riley. Joy is really, really going for it, and then Bing Bong's just like, keep singing, and then unbeknownst to Joy, he backs out of the ship or the rocket and sacrifices himself so Joy can make it.
Yeah.
And then as Joy makes it, and you kind of hear him cheering and dancing, but he just starts to disappear, and then he says, it's going to kill me to even say it. He's like, take her to the moon for me. Yeah. And I'm just like, oh man. By that really point, especially the first time, it hits, and it had me, like, even now it had me in tears, and I remember watching it for the first time and just being like inconsolable, because that is just so, I don't know, I don't know how many of us have had, or how many listeners, or even yourself, have had imaginary friends, but it's things like that to an imaginary friend, you must kind of mean the world to them, because you're the only person in their life, so
yeah, I mean,
you must mean like everything to them.
Yeah, that's the thing. I've never really had, I don't think I did have
I don't think I did
an imaginary
either.
friend when I was like a kid. I mean, obviously I had brothers, so but
and I've got a brother, so.
Yeah, exactly. But if you did have an imaginary friend, and that imaginary friend proved to be alive somewhere in your subconscious, that imaginary friend, you would be everything to that imaginary friend. Yeah.
So then Joy's trying to track down Sadness because obviously she now has hit the mindset of, oh, do you know what? Sadness is good. I need to go find her. She can help me. Then she starts chasing after her. And that's when we see murder number 2
Yeah,
happen.
that's the second murder.
Yeah. And then it comes to Joy has an idea when she sees Riley's fake boyfriend, and she goes to him because obviously we've not talked about it previously in the film, but Riley, they come across this machine in Imagination Land where Riley has created a fake boyfriend for herself, and this line just produces fake boyfriends.
I would die
Joy
for
types
Riley.
in, yeah. So that's like, so Joy produces one, and he's like, oh, will you help me? And then he's like, I would die for Riley, and he's like, oh, do you really mean that? And she's like, do you really mean that? And then he just says it again. So she orders like 9,999 of them, puts them in this never-ending bag, and then uses it as like a launch for her to bounce off a trampoline that's on Family Island to then catch Sadness. It's a very, very strategic and very kind of unlikely move.
Very unlikely. Very
bounces
fortunate
off this trampoline. Very fortunate circumstances. Catches Sadness, and then they, as Riley at this point has ran away from home. She's on the bus. She's leaving, and then smack, Joy and Sadness hit into the headquarters screen. Then the really funny thing happens where they're like, oh, they can't get in, they can't break it open. Disgust works out she uses anger, because every time Anger gets really angry, his head goes on fire.
Yeah.
So they use
It's
that
like a
to
Bunsen
open
burner.
like a Bunsen burner to break through the glass, get them in. They go over to the console, and Joy kind of notices that this is a moment for Sadness to really kind of take the lead here. So she gives Sadness the core memories. And obviously Sadness touches them all, changes them to blue. She takes charge of the console, and Riley then has a change of heart. They get the idea out of her head. She has a change of heart. She goes home. We see her with her parents, and she just breaks down. I cried at this part as well.
Oh yeah, this is the bit that broke me.
Yeah, and I didn't write much about it because I was so like, oh, at the time. But she breaks down to her parents, and they hug it out. Because she has a speech about, I know you want me to be happy, but I can't. Like, at this moment in time, that's basically the ethos of our whole speech.
Yeah, and that's the thing, that this is the precipice of the film that shows and proves to everyone that sadness is very important, and you can't go through life feeling happy all the time, and that there are certain times in your life that, even though, like, throughout this film, she was unable to feel sad, and he showed what that led to. She led to her feeling angry, becoming dishonest, running away, and it was only when sadness was able to kick back in that she was able to turn away from that and realize that what she was doing was wrong, and that she really needed to be back with her mum and dad, and went home and was able to actually break down into tears, being sad, and actually explain to them what she was really feeling, which was the fact that she didn't like it here. She misses home, and she's really struggling, and that she's sorry. And that's what. And then you're probably going to say this, but that's what then leads to the very first mixed ball emotion which comes out in the film, which is both joy and sadness, because she has this.
That's what I've got. That's what I've got. Right now.
Because it's that moment where, she's very sad, but because her mum and dad are just so happy that she's back, and they're actually able to say to her, look, the dad says, look, I miss home too, and I don't really like it here either, like, honestly. And they're all able to hug it out, and to really all of them express their feelings. Although it's a really sad moment, it also creates this real moment of joy for Riley that she's actually been able to express herself. So, and that's a really powerful thing to understand, that there are memories and emotions you can have which are mixed.
Yeah, because then after that we then see Joy kind of gives a speech about just kind of to close the film as such, and we see on the console there's loads of different types of core memories. There's pink and blue ones, there's red and green ones, and there's loads of different ones all mixed together. And I think they all kind of learned that, do you know what, there's no single entity here. Emotions are a mixture of things, no matter what they are. It's not just one emotion. Like, you don't need to have just one emotion. And then we kind of see Riley all happy and going out for hockey again. We see her parents at a hockey game, supporting her, and then the mum and dad are all like, the mum and dad's emotions are all like dreamy about each other and all this kind of stuff. And then she runs into the boy from the movie, the short film, who's like in love with her. And I love the inside of his head at that point. It's just all those emotions running about going, girl, girl.
Alarm is going off. Girl, girl, girl. Yeah. And he's just standing there just like jaw open like,
Yeah. So they go on, and then the film ends with her being like, Riley's 12 now. What's the worst that could happen? They kind of lead to that with the joke of the puberty button.
Yeah. Puberty. So, what's that? That's probably not important.
So there we are. We've reached the end of the film.
End of the film.
We've reached the end of the film. Yeah. So the reason why I picked it, like I said, I don't really do this top 5 movies thing like anymore. I know that's what we led into, but these are all films that I enjoy, but I also think that it'd be really good for us to talk about. And I think people might be interested in them. So this one, my kind of thinking was around obviously emotions and what the film kind of did for me.
Yeah.
And what it should do for young people out there. I mean, this has become like a really important film. It may not seem it because you don't hear about it, or it's not everybody's first pick. But in terms of learning in the education system, and in many other systems in mental health, and
absolutely
well-being, they've now started using this film with many different people, kids, adults, people with special needs, because it's such a deep and almost spot on way of understanding what goes on in a person's head.
Yeah.
Or like to understand things like abstract thought, and to break it down to that level, to make it deep, to understand that it's okay to have all these emotions, and it's okay for all these emotions to mix, and you don't always have to be happy. Pardon me. You don't always have to feel sad. Like, it's okay to be sad, and things like that. There's so many important lessons throughout this movie, and it's one of those that I think people lose, and not enough people I think have seen this movie. And I don't know, I think especially now at this time, and I mean, I'm not saying that, Inside Out is going to be the cure of everything that's going on in the world right now, but I think in terms of mental health and stuff like that, I think for people to watch it and kind of understand a bit more about their emotions, that it will only benefit. It might encourage people. It might really kind of lead people down a path of going, do you know what? When I feel sad, especially kids, just like, I'm really sad. I don't want to feel sad, like Riley did throughout this film. That teaching them from a young age that if you ain't all right, then that's fine.
Yeah.
That it can lead to happiness. It's like what it says. I mean, there may be pain in the night, but joy comes in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that really shows for the different memories and the sadness and how it turns to joy. So although it may be hurting just now, you don't know what's going to happen when you come through the other side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, this film was educational. On it was educational for me to help me understand my own emotions. Because
definitely.
even though it's like, they want to get kids to understand that, it helped me as well, because I remember the first time watching it, not understanding the importance of sadness. There's genuinely, for me, I did not see the importance of why sad. I was like Joy's character. Like, I was genuinely thinking, some people be watching it going, "Oh, I can see where this is going," and they're gonna show how important sadness was. But I just didn't get that while watching it the first time until we got to the point in the movie when it showed how important sadness really was, and it really made me sit and reflect on my own emotions, and that it's okay to be sad, and that sadness does have a place, and I shouldn't try and shut sadness out of my life and try and hide it away, and I should be happy all the time. And it really educated me that no, it's okay to be sad, and sadness has a real important part to play in all of our mental states. So for in terms of mental health, I feel this film is really important because it's an educational tool, not just for kids but also for adults. And especially, like you say, in a time like this when there's so many different things going on, and with us being in lockdown, the whole world being in lockdown, I think there's going to be a lot of people coming out of either still being in lockdown or coming out of lockdown, really going to be struggling mentally to cope with things. So I think mental health is really important, and the fact that a film like this gives people an opportunity to either think about mental health or have a platform to talk about mental health is a really positive thing and really important thing. So I'm really glad that you did pick this movie, just to give us a chance to actually talk about it and to be able to talk about how different emotions are still important and how it's okay to feel. It's okay to feel sad, because it's an important thing, and everybody goes through times in their life where they feel either sad, or they do feel like Riley felt in the film, where she couldn't feel happiness or sadness and she just sort of felt numb. These things happen to people, but if you ride through them, and your happiness and joy do come back into your life. It's a very powerful and important film.
Yeah, I think that this conversation as well that we're having is really important. I think that we, as we're not revolutionaries.
No.
Me and you, we're not. We're two guys hosting a podcast. But I think it is important that we use this platform and we use whatever situations that God has given us to promote any way that can benefit people. So, I mean, I don't know about you. Do you do the descriptions for this that go on like Spotify and stuff like
that? Descriptions, we have show notes.
Yeah. So can you possibly put in phone numbers for different mental health sites?
Sure, I can absolutely. I can do that. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that's something that Martin and I are going to do for anyone who's possibly listening to this and struggling. Again, we're not heroes. We're not people who know it all, but we are people who care. So even if you're listening to this and you don't know us and we don't know you, but you do feel like you need someone to talk to, our DMs, our mutual account DMs are open, and we're willing to talk to, anyone who listens, anybody who wants someone to listen to. Like I say, we're not experts. We can't help you deal with it, but if you want an ear, our ear is here.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important to say that if you don't feel comfortable reaching out to a stranger, there are plenty of people. It's important if you have to reach out to your friends, even if you think that they might not think it's important, or even if you think that they might think you're silly for wanting to speak about things. Trust me in that people are a lot more understanding than you think they're going to be, and that especially nowadays, if you reach out to someone and let them know that you're struggling, if they're a true friend, then they'll really will want to help you, and they'll be willing to listen and talk to you through things. So I just want to encourage anyone who's listening, who's struggling with anything, reach out to somebody, whether that's a friend, whether that's a helpline, which we're going to put some in the description of this podcast. Do it, because it's very important.
Yep. So with that being said, thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for being you. We hope you are well, you listeners at home. Martin, I hope you're well.
Yeah, I hope you're well as well. I am thankfully, I'm in a good place right now, thankfully.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I am indeed also well. Thanks for that wee chat, but we're just going to wrap things up just now. I want to give this movie a little rating.
Yep, absolutely. What do you think?
Like we started doing. I'm going to give it. I keep giving them like really high. I keep giving them like really high, like over the top scores. But I think for me, this is a 9.
High score.
9, I think. The only thing that's probably missing from it is maybe that it could be a bit longer. That's probably all. Because it's only an hour and 34. So I could probably, I don't know. It's a really powerful, really simple plot. But I don't know. In fact, you know what? I'm giving it a 10. I'm sorry.
Wow.
Do you know why I didn't give it a 9? Because I feel like the crowd would turn on me if I gave it a 10, because I've just given everything we've done a 10. I'm giving it a 10. I'm giving it a 10.
Cool, good for you.
Because for it being longer is not an excuse. No, I think a 10. Definitely a 10 because of the importance that it should have on this society. And I think it's a really important movie. It's a movie that's touched me. It's a movie that's changed me. And that means the movie's done the job.
Yeah, cool, absolutely.
So what about you?
For me, I'm gonna give this movie an 8. I think I said to you, I possibly even mentioned it in the previous podcast. Watching this the first time round, I liked it, but I didn't love it. But I love the message behind it and the depth to it. All of that stuff I love about this film, and I think it's very powerful and very important. But from a pure viewing perspective, I still think it's a really good film. But because it really is a kids' film, for me personally, I just knocked it down a couple of scores, because it's not the first film I've run to watch, but it's still a fantastic film. So for me, it gets a solid 8.
Cool. Fantastic. Well, a 10 and an 8. That's both great.
You're not wrong.
So anyway, tell me. No, I'm not wrong. So tell me, what have you got for me next week?
Right, for next week, I want to continue to be unexpected. This is a film that I genuinely love. And I think it's amazing. I'll talk about it next week. But I genuinely love this film, and I don't think you'll expect me to say this. But the movie I'm picking to review next week is Baby Driver.
All right. Yeah. No, I did expect you to pick that at one point.
Did you really?
Yeah. Fully.
Wow. I did not know that you knew I liked that film so much.
No, I can't remember when we were last talking about it, because we were talking about it. Was it when we were on the chat with Kirsten? Was that when we last talked about it?
I have no idea.
I don't know, but when you last talked about it, it was while we were either starting the process to do this, or when we had started doing this, and then you ended up talking about that film one night, and I was just like, he's going to pick this as one of his.
Well, the funny thing is I nearly didn't pick this. It nearly wasn't on my radar. There was plenty of other films I was going to pick ahead of it. And then it suddenly jumped onto my radar again this week, and I suddenly remembered how much I love it, and I was like, you know what? It's getting done. We're doing Baby Driver.
Done tootin'.
So that's next week.
That's fine. That's one I've got.
Yeah, excellent.
That's what I've got, so that's cool. Excellent. Right, well, I'm looking forward to that. It's a good watch. I was about to say when will I watch it, but it'll be at some point this week, probably Saturday. Who knows? Well, anyway, that's the show for this week.
Awesome.
We hope that you have enjoyed it. We hope that you two enjoy Inside Out as much as we do.
Absolutely. I hope you've enjoyed everything about this. I hope you've enjoyed our voices. I hope you enjoyed the message. And most importantly, I hope you feel like you've taken something positive away from today.
Yeah, so we hope you enjoyed that. And remember, if you are in a place where you do need some help, please follow the links in the description for this podcast. Thank you very much for listening. It means so much that you take an hour and a half or whatever it is this week out of your week to listen to us, because hey, we're just two dudes talking about something we watch every now and again. So thank you very much for listening, and you will hear us next week.
See you next week, guys.